comes together and we all identify as daughters, let's say it that way, because everybody is a daughter or some kind of child from someone. And so we thought that would be a good topic because we all also think a lot about the role that daughters have in society, or what is the role that we have to fulfill or want to fulfill. And so all of the three positions work with this topic, and that's why we took it as like our theme and also named the whole exhibition Daughters.
And in this one, you work with ornaments, and I know these are the ornaments from the hospital, intensive care, and these are remembrance of your mother. In previous times, it used to be always sons and sons of fatherland that had to defend, and in this one is a feministic approach to challenges that women have, and more about care and the ornaments of care. And I would be very interested if you could tell more about this difference.
I mean, that's, in this work there's definitely more than one layer, because it's one, like you said, it's my mother that is on the pictures, but it's also not only about not just about me or this particular relationship, but it's a big part, but it's also about, like you said, about care work. What is care work and how can we define it, or how can we recognize it? And in this particular moment, it was during the Corona times, and so in the hospital there were not many people, not many visitors, only staff who worked there, and basically me, because I don't know why all of the others, like other family members, couldn't, like there was only one person allowed per person. And so I got to think about all of this setting that you have a lot of machines, and they kind of are part of this whole care. So they take care actually of the life of a person. What happens? Is it maybe influencing the person by, like, for example, it's very, like, the heartbeat gets very rhythmic. It's not like you cannot have any kind of turbulence anymore, because the machine makes it go like this, and you hear the sound from that. And I was wondering how this particular care influences the body of the patient and the body of my mother, because she wasn't conscious, so I couldn't ask her, but if maybe this creates also maybe some kind of, like cyborg, where the machine and the human together, they are like a different kind of entity, and maybe even the person influences also the machine, who knows, and I would be interested in like all of these topics, as well as the care work that is in all of the machines, of course in the staff, and the family members who come. And so this was my perspective, how I started the work with the documentary photographs that I took.
I think this issue of a machine and the cyborg will be more and more important in our future, and I would be all the more for the side to support this cooperation when the machine would help and to be part of care rather than the opposite of it. But I think it all lies in the hands, as you say and as you show, in the hands of human beings, in what way they use these apparatuses. And
exactly, yeah. So it can be in this very caring way, and I think this is probably a very good purpose, but then, there's several other things that you could use AI for. But here I was really also, when you start thinking of artificial intelligence and what it does, then it's in particular interesting here, because maybe the artificial intelligence would be able to read the electronic waves that are taking part in this patient that you cannot talk to. So maybe somehow it could be possible to find out more about this state of being when you are here, but you are not here, both at the same time. So I would really like to find out if there's a possibility of kind of a conversation or of a, like through the machine, getting more in touch with the person you cannot talk to anymore.
This would be something like wonder, but I think it's not very much in future because the scientific researches in that field are going on very well. Speaking of research, you are an artist and you are a scientist as well, artistic research. I think it's incredibly important. So how does art, creativity relate to research?
And I think art and, for example, philosophy have a lot in common because it's a way of looking at the world, of thinking of the world, and one is like expressing itself in texts, and the other one is expressing these thoughts in visual, whatever it might be, but visual kind of works. And the same goes a little bit for, like, when you as an artist do artistic research, then you try to express something that you found out or researched on through visual or through artistic media, and make it in a way accessible for people to get into it without maybe having to have read certain studies or so. So I think there's this connection between both, where also my theoretical work is very much influenced by my artistic research. It's not one way or the other, but it really influences the both. Like the texts are influenced by my artistic work and the other way around. And for example, like you said, this feministic approach is something that very much I can find in a lot of texts that I'm reading, but then also trying to give it some kind of space, for example, through these works, where I, for example, with the patterns that we have on some of them, like here you can also, not so abstract, but there's some that are more abstract, and I try to make the important personal, through this pattern, to make it a little bit more abstract, and by doing so, to give it this relevance in the so-called canon that we have, because it spreads out to be something more than just something personal, So this is maybe the one of the reasons why I'm, for example, here doing this in patterns, but also with my other work, a lot working in an abstract way, but a lot of the times there's something very real behind it.
Exactly. The science is about this production of knowledge, and I would think that production of knowledge in the science of art, it goes through emotion, because the essence of art has to be emotion, wouldn't it? And this is the knowledge that you cannot get otherwise, because wouldn't that be the oldest metaphor and the essence of art, that it shows something that you otherwise wouldn't show and wouldn't see? It discloses and reveals. And that would bring us to one of your works with Stefan Miedenberg, correct? It was about showing and hiding, revealing and concealing, called jalousie. And I researched into this because jalousie, the French word, and it means also jealousy of those who don't
hiding and being shown or not shown is definitely one of the topics within this work, where because it's like you have to know, of course, the artworks of Stefan Mildenberger. They are, if you look at them, they look a little bit like a jalousie, because he takes two different images of two different persons, but they always have something in common. And then he divides both of these images and merges them together. So you can also see he always does two couples. So he has one where you see the one person more and one where you see the other person more, and you recognize usually who it is. But it is always really transformed. So you see someone in a very different way. So this hiding and being seen, or what of your personality is being seen and what is maybe hidden, is part of this play. And within our cooperation, I wrote a text for this jalousie piece, and I also read the text out loud. So it's a video piece where you have my voiceover with the text that I wrote about the work, but also to come closer to the topic of the work in a way. It's not just in the sense of writing about like I did now, like explaining how it looks. No, but it's more of these questions: what is being shown, what is not being shown. It's the pictures that we're looking at are very much also dealing with gender, but then also with being in the internet, being in Snapchat, being in, like, all of these come together in this work, and I'm trying to give it like a framing, let's say.
I like the work very much because visually, formally, it reminded me of the early works in photography of Rodchenko. Rodchenko had these stripes, and it's a very interesting art historical reference. And you work also a lot with patterns and grids. One of my favorite works is the grid, because it is extremely subversive in a very subtle way, not that aggressive, but it breaks this pattern, it brings irregularities into it, and this is very important in our time as a female artist.
I mean, it's also what I meant by the work can be very abstract, but then also still like means something very particular. Like, I think when you look at these images that are black and white and usually like a grid that kind of is not as a grid anymore, but really kind of broken in a way, you don't have to know what this is about, but you kind of, like you said before, you get this feeling of something that you probably...
Disturbance.
Exactly. You probably somehow get reminded of how everything has to be straight and like in the grid, but it's not. And so I think...
It never is in life.
Yeah, exactly. It never is. But it's also... like we talked about before, that the camera, which is taking our images, for our skin tone, it's okay, but for other skin tones, it just doesn't show the right colors. So we think something is not, like, it doesn't do anything with the content, but in fact, all of this is always in some kind of grid, let's say, where there's a definition of what is a norm and what is not the norm. And this, in a way, is also, in a very broad sense, something that is in these grid pictures, that I'm asking, how can we be in this world that it is very much in grid, also architecture, everything you see around you, there's a lot of like patterns that are really rectangular, but then also every person, like you also said, life is not like that. So every person kind of finds ways to be in this grid where you cannot come out of, but you can like kind of make it more for you, fitting for you, and of course some people need that more because the norm don't, like all of the norms don't fit at all.
Yeah, this work raises questions about the norm and the abnormal, or what we realize as abnormal, because we're very strictly schooled in the visual regimes.
Exactly.
In our everyday life and in art as well. And I think it is very important to question these visual regimes and to question it in a way that others get aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
And this brings us to your work, Canon, art historical canon. It takes much courage to question this art historical tradition of art, old masters. How was, you made a course at the university?
You're talking about the book that
the book, and it is based on a teaching course.
Yeah.
Experimental. How was it received? How did the students receive it, and how was the book received? I'm very interested in the question of how was it read, and what were the reactions to this?
Very different, of course, but from the people that maybe also we could say we addressed. I did the book together, and also the class, it was like a 2-year class for art students together with Joke Janssen, and we were supposed to have like a little heft book kind of thing where you have a documentation of the 2 years. So, but since we did the whole class in a collective way, and like trying to address care work, trying to address feministic positions, and to be aware of privileges, of all of this. For us, it wasn't really logical to like say, okay, you and I, we are going to write this book now. But we asked the students if they were interested in doing it together. And so we decided on doing this book, which is called Canon, and which is like a dictionary. So you have always like very old school with arrows where you can see what's the reference from where, But also what you quote with this is like the whole quotation system in science, where I always quote someone, and because I quote this person who's usually in the canon already, and most of the time male, so these people get quoted again and again and again, and this is how like this normality kind of evolves. But if you, like in this case, quote the persons that you chose, for example, Donna Haraway or Karen Barrett or whoever, and then you quote within the canon you and the other peers, you kind of make the same reference system in a different, with different topic or with a different content. And this is also why we kind of called it like a Trojan horse, because we call it canon, and you think, okay, I have this book now, it's some kind of canon from the art schools, and then you get something totally else, where a lot of music is mentioned, where texts are as important as also images, or you can scan and you can listen to audio walks. So there's a lot of different things in there, and so we kind of smuggled our canon into this institutional art world.
I think it's very essential to question canon, because for the canon itself, because if no one doesn't raise questions about it and how it came to be, it will get some dusty connection, some dusty mountain of references, and it will lose its importance. But for the canon itself to live on, it is very important to develop.
Yeah.
And I think it's very monumental that someone starts with it.
I mean, I think many people do and try, and we can all connect and try to have more impact by mentioning, for example, Saskia Weiler, who was part of the book, because we went to her institution where she at the time taught something about care work, but also work with groups within the neighborhood. So, for example, she's part of the book. We were there. We were mentioned in her. So this is, I think, how it also works to kind of create new canons. Or, for example, here, when you look at the artworks, they're all on fabric. So something that is somehow always something that's female art, but then also part of it is very, here in the sculptures you have parts that are steel, but it's underneath, and so you kind of get something that you maybe expect, but then also not, and also make something like fabric, a material that, yes, it is an artwork. It can be an artwork, and here even it's a bed sheet, like behind the image. It's a real bed sheet that you find in all of the German cities. I realized because I saw it in 3 hospitals. So, like taking these care utensils, let's say, and putting it in the context of an art gallery or for an artwork, it somehow also changes what kind of contents we realize and we look at, you know.
Well, it's an evolution because speaking of fabrics, canvas, oil canvas is also a fabric.
Of course.
But now in the 21st century, it's evolved because art has evolved tremendously, and the world around us, and that's it. In line of speaking about women in arts and feministic artists, which are the ones that have probably influenced you much or that you love and admire? My favorites are Andrea Fraser, for instance, of course, women artists, painters, but Andrea is something.
Yes.
Parastu Foroyar, amazing contemporary artist.
I mean, there's of course so many. Maybe that's why I now just say this whole work started because there was a call for making women artists more visible, who did something in the last century in Germany, and I thought, this is an interesting task, but it also should be someone that is important for you. So is like this research project, and I figured that I wanted to give my own mother a broader perception, because she was an artist her whole life, and she did many things. Mostly, her most important material was painting, but she also did many other things. And so I came into this research on my mother through this, like this call, and then I started to create these works that I for a long time wanted to do. So maybe I just say my mother, she's Christine Biedermann, so because she also of course has a name. And I mean, this is probably someone who influenced me very much because I grew up with her. But then of course there's so many who to mention, like when I was really little, I was very much into Sophie Kahl's work, and then also a lot of Pippi Lottirist, which I mean I think still it's super. I love it. Pippi Lottirist's works, and then it evolved to Valley Export, which I also just saw a very good exhibition. Also went to the Isa Gensken exhibition here in Berlin. It was super great when you really went inside. It changed a lot from just looking from outside. I was really impressed by how it really changed when you went into another position within the exhibition. Was always kind of changing.
Her work changed a lot through time.
That also,
I saw her work in a private collection in the Berlin Mitte
Or Louise Bourgeois is also someone actually who I really admired. But also because she's one of these figures that you can really, as a woman, as a mother, you can kind of try to follow, because she did the family life, but she also was always into her art. And then when she was 70, she was kind of getting more famous. So it's maybe something that is a kind of model where you could also say you have something maybe before you're 35, and then you have another time of when you have to combine more family life and also your work, and then afterwards again you can go even deeper into your art. And so I think that's very inspiring about her.
That's human creativity. I always thinking of Camille Claudel, also who is not that famous, and it's very exemplary for the destinies of women artists par excellence. What is it like to be a female artist in contemporary Berlin art scene? Berlin art scene is extremely hyped, and being a Berlin artist is something. So how is it for you?
I mean, I think the Berlin art scene is super diverse, so I don't know, there's like many different ones where you are definitely not part of all of it, so I can only speak about the more or less about this project scene, alternative scene, also of spaces that are run by artists, or also in a way maybe critical and political a little bit, most of them. I mean, now we just had the cuttings of almost everything for the art scene in Berlin. So it is going to be terrible, I think, and you realize then how diverse and really big the scene actually is, because we just had all of these
demonstrations yesterday.
Yeah, manifestations and everything, and so we saw each other, and it's like you realize it is really something very special here, that all of us have a space where we can show, or we have a space where you can work that is at the moment still kind of affordable. And I think that's really, really something that Berlin lives from, because that's the only way why you can survive here as an artist, where you have to have your studio, you have to have your time and space enough to produce your work, but then you also have to have possibilities to show, and so all of that came together here.
And the gender gap,
exactly,
which is extremely unfair, and that still exists and persists.
And it exists also in art, of course, it exists everywhere. I mean, this is something, but I think that's something not specific for just Berlin, but it's in a lot of cities, I guess, everywhere in Germany, the gender pay gap is existent.
Exactly. And that brings me to this question. How would you think or define it? What is the relationship between arts and politics? I mean, to which extent, if at all, art has to involve with politics?
I mean, I think one cannot say that it has to. It's up to the person who is creating the art. But I also think that art in its own way always is somehow also involved in maybe not daily politics, but in politics by showing how the contemporary for this person is. So you have some view, you see a perspective, you have someone who is dealing with the world. But then, of course, I mean, I think all of these little perspectives are together, they show something about, which we can also call society or politics. And of course, a lot of artists really are very much interested in politics, or in certain ones, or all of this activism that in Berlin is necessary for example, having a studio and all of that is also part. And I think, I mean, personally, I think I couldn't really divide my life from my art. So as I'm like reading and being very much in this society, I'm very politically informed and also active. So of course it's part of my art. And what I really think would be great is if all of the politicians had an artist as on their side, as an,
assistant advisor.
Yeah. Because I think maybe that's something that you can do as an artist, to think out of the box, and also having some ideas about how things could be changed. So
I remember very much the Berlin Biennale 7, and I made an interview with Tautfest, and that was one of my questions, and he answered that a lot of politicians act like artists, clowns or jesters, and a lot of artists act like politicians. If that goes to the extremes, then the results might be sad. Nicely put, but it's an experiment. It's in the being. This is also this topic when the private becomes public,
exactly.
as in your works, and this is the moment when the private becomes political. I think I personally, I'm not an artist. I am asking questions and researching into this. I would say the way you put it, the way you put your political message, I think that's the most important about, wouldn't it? Somehow it has to cause the emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, why do you do art? That's my true and sincere question. Why do you do this?
You asked me why I'm doing
Yes.
Yeah, like I said in the beginning, and I think it's a way of expressing something that maybe could also be philosophical, could be political, and it is a different way of telling something. For example, music is another way where you really, like you said, this emotional feelings, everything comes out. This is in music. It's a big thing.
Even
about
more.
Yeah, but also with visual art, I think you can create something that is not. That's also difficult to say because you try to do it without words, and that's actually the thing. You try to express something what you maybe couldn't say or couldn't write down, and so you're in between these spheres where you, like, in a philosophical or political way, but you try to find other ways of expressions, and by that also for other people to get something from that is not as clear maybe, but still gives you some feeling of what is maybe meant. So it's something that's also open, and for the visitors to some kind of, you have something where you can project also your own experience, and then from like this together, like the artwork and your own experience gives you maybe another different feeling, something that you explore through this.
You can put it into one note or into one issue. It's very much authentic and erratic. It's like entering into this exhibition space and feeding upon this aura. And I very much like the way it's hanged, because it's not one artist in each separate room, but it's Yeah.